Welcome to the FLF podcast by J3VC. Today's episode is titled The Modern Masculinity Dilemma, Challenges and Solutions for Men Today. I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Jason. How are you doing today, Jason?
Fantastic. Much better.
As always.
Yep, absolutely.
I think we need to start a hashtag bring back the leopard print shirt.
Leopard print should be illegal. Part of the modern masculinity crisis.
Yeah, talking about masculinity, a bit of, it's not pink, it's salmon. That's what I've been told. It's more masculine if you call it salmon rather than calling it pink. I mean, the color. Is that true?
I have no idea. Wear what looks good.
Match your skin tone.
Yeah, exactly.
So, masculinity dilemma. Do you think we're in a dilemma, or do you think it's a change in culture? What do you think of when you hear the word masculinity in today's environment?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion around masculinity, of course. And I think like with everything, instead of the differentiation between masculine and feminine, what's happened, particularly in the West, is like a blurring between the lines and the differentiation between masculine and feminine. So in general, the only way you would really know this actually by experience is going back one or two generations. Now, I'm from an Asian culture, so it's a little bit different. It's a bit more traditional. But certain things were like a given, like the man provides and protects, and the woman like helps and supports. It's just very clear, and the expectations are clear. But in this generation, it's in the West particularly, it's like blurred together. So men and women, there's no distinction. We're both the same. Men can do female stuff, female can do male stuff. That's probably the prevailing view. I think the result of that is A, confusion, and B, worse results and worse outcomes, to make it really simplified. But that's my take.
I think this is going to continue the way it's going in the West, because with the confusion and the worst results, most of the people pushing these ideas are saying we're confused and the results are like this because we haven't done it enough. We need to do it more. So I think that's going to make it work.
Yeah, you need role models, teaching, education, traditions like passed down in order for people to understand, and that is actually happening in the opposite direction from traditionalism. Like it's actually happening to where this new think is, suddenly we've figured it out. We're so smart. And our thinking over the last 10 years, 15, 20 years is now so original and so amazing and so incredible. Let's just ignore the rest of human history past and make it this new think that we've just come up with now. And I don't think we've fully witnessed the full results of that type of new think. But I think maybe 100 years from now, history will be quite damning on this generation. They'll be like, what the heck happened? It was like a ideological dark age for men and women. That's I think how it will be looked back upon.
I think it takes a couple of generations to really take effect and to test the ideas over time. There was a recent story of a logging company in Australia trying to get a loan, and the bank said no for ideological reasons. So just because of their ideology, the banks decided not to serve their shareholders and investors and say no to something which possibly was a good investment because of ideology. And I think this is one of the things that's going to happen after sort of maybe people our age. We sort of grew up in the starting of the confusion of masculinity and femininity. And I think that sort of same ideology drives these sort of decisions. And now it's going to be starting to affect commercial decisions, because the people that grew up maybe a little bit confused and more worried about the environment than the economy, or their ideology is different. I think now is when we start seeing the real effects of it, because people are old enough to be put in roles of decision making that share the ideology that we're discussing about in regards of the confusion between masculinity and femininity.
Yes. And a lot of it, I think, also depends where you live around the world. There's certain like cities and countries that are definitely more liberal, and then certain countries and cities that are definitely more conservative.
That's certain. I think for trying to get a snapshot of what it looked like maybe 70 or 80 years ago, go to somewhere that's secluded, that doesn't consume much media. So my family comes from a small island in Greece, and for all intensive purposes, you go to visit that island, you're in the 1950s or 1960s with today's technology.
Yes.
The men work, the women do what the women were doing in the 60s. And as a case study, it wouldn't be fair to compare it to a country the size of Australia, because basically they're their own little small nation on this little island of Greece. And it works so well. Everyone's so happy. Kids run around everywhere. They have their afternoon naps. Like it's incredible. So I think that is maybe a snapshot of me, of that I've personally seen, of what the 1960s values with 2025 technology would look like. And it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what it means to be masculine. So evolving gender roles. Do you think that the gender roles have evolved, or people's perception of what the gender roles should be have changed? I'd argue it's the latter.
Yeah, people's perception has changed. And I think it began with the descent philosophically into postmodernism. As soon as you take away objective truth and supplant that with relativism, then you no longer have objective, truth and reality around what is a man, what is a woman. You've got, well, it's just a spectrum. It's just a sliding scale. And I think the reality is that the majority of people, the silent majority doesn't subscribe to that, but the loudest voices sometimes are in the minority. But I think the cultural tide, shifting back after, especially in the US, which is culture making, now that the government, switched over to a more conservative position, and Trump's just said yesterday there's only going to be 2 genders recognized by the US government. Like that's going to affect and start to, have cultural ramifications. So maybe the tide hasn't swung, all the way, and maybe it's going to swing back, over the next few years. But I do think that the silent majority now has like the public voice, especially with Trump coming back into office.
I would, I think, add a point to that, because from what I've seen over the last possibly 15 years, is the blurring of the lines between the masculine and the feminine. The powers or people are culture is driving women to be more masculine and men to be more feminine. And I think there's been a push for the last 15 years. And that's, I think, a long enough push to create ideology in certain people that are easily susceptible to new ideas. And as they get older, their susceptibility to new ideas is going to go down. So if someone's at the right age, they've just had a 15-year bombardment while they're still malleable and while they're bringing on new ideas. And then as their ability to bring in new concepts, or their maybe even interest of trying to understand new concepts wane, as they start to get older, these people are going to be put in positions of power. And I think they're going to push that ideology for the next 30 years. There are certain people of the right age group that's going to be a reality moving forward forever, or for our lifetime anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely already happened. I was in a cafe this morning actually, and these 3 guys came in. I won't say like where they were from, but they were sitting around talking super loud, talking for a very, very long time, like 25, 30 minutes at the top of their lungs. And I was trying to work, and I sat there just drinking my coffee, and I thought to myself, this is such feminine behavior. And because I was thinking, this is what women do. Like when I see, other men, it's like, hey, how are you going? It's very short, brief. Hello, how are you? And then like, you just go on. You take action. You less talk, more action. Women apparently spend like 10,000 words a day, and men apparently spend like about 1,000 words a day. And these men were just talking forever. And literally on a biological level, I just thought to myself, these guys are so feminine. And yet they looked, quote unquote, typically masculine. So I think now more than ever, like it's not only is the culture confused, but it's very unclear. You have like men showing feminine behavior and women showing masculine behavior. And I think on a psychological, biological level, it doesn't feel right. And probably that's why girls come up with what's it called? The ick. There's something that doesn't register on the biological level.
Well, I think that's because in the same breath, no one can walk up to a man and say, you need to go to therapy to resolve your masculinity issues. And then in the same breath, say, I'm unattracted to you because you're feminine.
Yeah.
Completely contradictory. They can't. So then it's easier to go, oh, he just gives me the ick. Yeah, probably because he's creepy, because he gets no female attention and he's looking for these weasel ways to hang around these women. Like we've all seen these men, they start, I mean, not to bash on yoga, but they join yoga classes not because they want to increase flexibility or maybe recover from an injury, or it can be good in certain circumstances, but they join yoga because they want to be around women.
Yes, exactly.
In a weird way. And so instead of being able to approach and talk to women and have great relationships with women, they just, like a predator, go into spaces that are typically full of women and just look at them weird and breathe heavily.
Yes. Yeah, the reality is like men find feminine women attractive and women find masculine men attractive. So it's not just about, it's about embodying those behaviors and those intrinsic characteristics. It's going to be better for you in the long run.
Another anecdotal story. It's like when your wife or your girlfriend comes up to you and explains that she's had a rough day and this is how she feels and this happened and that happened. And then as a man, if you reply with a short response, do this, it'll fix it, you'll get back like, you don't understand me. Why would you talk to me like that? It's because she doesn't want a solution. She wants you to listen to her feelings and then feel sorry for her for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can weave in the solution to try and make your life better in the future so you don't have to hear the same thing every day. But she wants you to listen to her feelings, and it's the exact opposite with a man. If a man comes up and says, I had these issues, I was at work, I've got this problem, and then you went to that man and started talking about his feelings, he'd look at you confused and,
Exactly.
I want to fix the problem. My feelings are irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. It's a completely different approach.
It is. And what do you think the solution is to the mental health crisis we're having at the moment? So antidepressants, SSRIs, all of these things, I believe they have a place in the world, but I believe at the current rate they're being consumed, something's wrong. What do you think is not even a solution, maybe a step in the right direction for mental health, for men specifically, if we're going to speak about masculinity?
Yeah, men, to make it really simple, I think men need respect. So that begins with yourself. And then to do the things that can garner respect from other men in particular, but other people. If you have the respect, self-respect, and the respect of other men, your depression level will go down. It's as simple as that. Simple as that. So then, the best thing to do is to do the things that will garner self-respect from yourself. Things like working out, working hard, being brave, doing those things, and then doing the things that will garner respect from other people, especially from other men. And then your depression level will go down. Everybody goes through difficult circumstances, and suffering in life is hard. But if you're able to curate and cultivate respect as a man, your depression level will go down massively.
What do you think of the idea that not all mental issues, but depression specifically, is the overwhelm that a man currently feels? So they feel overwhelmed or possibly unable to change the situation they're not happy with.
Say again. So say that, kind of rephrase that, or like say
Yes.
that again.
So I've been thinking about this idea that depression in men, other than dealing with a serious event, what's it called when you go through a very serious event? Military personnel do this all the time.
Like PTSD.
Yeah. So I like, other than PTSD, because that's legit. I think the depression in men is driven by their thought that they are unable to change a situation that they're currently not happy with.
Their depression is linked to being unable to change what's happening in their life.
Yeah, I would rephrase that to they think they can't change it. So they believe they're unable to change a situation that they're not happy with. And that's what drives someone into a spiral of depression.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, powerlessness for men is massively detrimental. Now, that may be true. Like, you may be facing things that you cannot change and control, but there is always something you can do to make your situation better. It may not solve the actual problem. And I would argue that unresolved problems cause of like massive stress for men. That's why we want to solve the problems that are in front of us. So I would say, like, but doing something that's going to improve your situation will make you feel more powerful. And that's also going to contribute to your mental health improving. Feeling powerful as a man is extremely important. And so that power is manifest through self-control and through like physical and emotional expression. Emotional power is primarily around self-control, but physical power is around out combat sports, things of that nature, being successful in business, displaying dominance and power. It's like very, very important for a man. And also it's what women respond to, like in men. So I think it's extremely important for men to be able to cultivate.
What are your thoughts on this? This is something that I've just thought of, is that the masculine brain is always moving forward. It's always building something. So you can be building in your mind a castle and a fortress and positive things to help people around you. But if you're not building that, your mind goes to work on a balance of probabilities. You're just building yourself a prison or a negative environment. So unless actively moving forward, because I've seen this in myself, unless actively moving forward, you kind of just start going backwards. So I think from my own experience, the way to overcome this depression or sadness is you have to keep moving forward, because when you hit goals, eventually the feeling goes away. So you have to hit more goals or you go backwards. I think there's no real option. You're walking uphill or you're rolling down it.
Yeah, there's no situation of stasis where things just remain the same. You're either going forward or backwards. So the work is never finished. Unfortunately, the work is never finished. There's always more work. So yeah, there's always something to work on. The work never ends.
Interesting. And on the same vein, I was at my gym recently and there's this younger guy there, and I saw a look in his face of absolute elation, because we were training and I could see he was a young man. He was angry at life, and I was working with him and we were sparring and training, and I was encouraging him, just let it out, just go, send it, like go for it. And he did. And at the end of the training session, he was exhausted, and the look on his face was like the happiest you could possibly see a man. Yeah. And it was because, like, I can come here, I can do this, I can let this out. I feel great. I go home, I'm tired, have a great sleep. This is like the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of the masculine experience. And if a man just spends 5 or 10 years trying to suppress that, they're just doing themselves a disservice, because I think you can talk yourself into believing just about anything. And so if a man talks themselves into believing that they have zero anger, zero ego, or try to kill that over a long enough time frame, they'll probably succeed. And I think that's going to deviate from where they want to go naturally, and that's going to lead to depression for a lot of men. I think that's one way to go down that negative rabbit hole, is to avoid that and crush it.
Yeah, it's very unhealthy to do that. Your anger and your ego, I would argue, are simply neutral, but they have to be channeled like in the right direction. And suppressing is absolutely going to lead to bad results. In fact, channeling your anger in the right way, in the healthy way, is essentially the highest form of emotional self-control. And having an ego that, is directed and earned for the service of yourself and therefore others is the highest and best use of ego. Anyone who's denying ego and anger, like as a man, or suppressing it, as you said, like is, trying to nullify like the weapon. And, there's nothing positive that really comes from that. You always have it then manifest in some strange, weird way when that's the case.
I think I see it a lot in people that are particularly focused inwards, and also that they spend a lot of time online, is the ego is still there with these particular people, but it comes out in the form of nastiness. They want to be saboteurs, and they want to cause other people pain. And on the other side, some of my friends are fighters and train regularly, and they let that ego out and they let that aggression out on the mat. And these are the nicest dudes you'd ever meet, unless you fight them.
Yeah.
And I've seen a common theme with that is men that have that outlet, like the gym I go to. You walk in, you'd like, is this like the nicest man on the planet conference? Like everyone's so nice. It's ridiculous. And then we just punch the crap out of each other, and then we're nice again. And then I think the inverse is the people that look inwards and doing the computer thing. They have this sort of air of nastiness about them, and they, write comments and go on the internet, ferret away, and that's their outlet.
It is actually a big irony that that it is an irony that it's usually the other way around. Like if you were looking at, if you really know men, then a lot of times you look at like guys who look mean and tough, and actually like they're the nicest, genuine people. And it's the people who are most dangerous are the ones who are essentially like nice, and then and they have that hidden dark side that's like quite dangerous. Yeah. Very, very good observation. I think it's true in the gym, and definitely true in the fight gym.
Yeah, the fight gyms are great, and it's amazing too. I encourage any man to go out there, find yourself a good one. You don't want to get TBI. So if they're smashing each other in the face every session, go to find a different gym. But other than that, go for it. It's just because I'm just aware through friends and people that I know that getting repeated head injuries is not good. Just don't do it. Just don't go there.
Yeah.
So you can spar, like if you want a hard spar, you can break each other's ribs and all this sort of stuff. But if you're going home with a headache every training session, don't be doing that for your own health.
That's not good.
Yeah, absolutely not good. Here we go. It's a fantastic one. In regards to masculinity, building strong male friendships and community. I think this one's huge. And this is one of the first steps. If any man is feeling depressed or a little bit confused, one of your first steps, go find yourself a team or a tribe. We've been running around in tribes for thousands of years. Make sure the tribe's going to give you a positive mission, and then start spending time with those people. What do you think of that idea for masculinity, Jason?
Yeah, I think part of the reality is it's inevitable that you start to become like the people that you spend the most amount of time with. And most people do that quite passively rather than with intention. And since most societies and cultures actually operate in this informal hierarchy, it's actually important, like when you find your tribe, to realize that, that's actually taking place. So in order to have the experience where you're with, let's say other like top tier men, you have to be on that climb or on that ascent as well, and demonstrating that. And as you like give and show value and respect, like you start to like receive that in turn, and that allows you to build trust like within those hierarchies. And that's what builds a sense of like solidarity and solidity, like by being part of a wolf pack rather than like being a lone wolf. And I think that's probably becoming more rare, and people are maybe less, with decentralized authority, like people are less like, just caught up in their local tribe. So, it's much easier to just be a lone wolf. So you have to be a bit more intentional these days, but it's probably easier than it's ever been because, everybody has a presence, online, or, people are more mobile than they've ever been. So yeah, I think it's absolutely necessary. I read something recently where it said like you essentially live up to the image you have of yourself in your imagination, like in your mind. And I think the friends and the people around you, the tribe around you, is somewhat of a reflection back to yourself. And you start to become, like your tribe, and vice versa. So yeah, I think it's extremely important. But I had a question for you. Like, what do you think about like the importance of men having a mission? And what do you think about, like, how do you think, a man would go about finding his mission or figuring that out?
Well, there's two parts to that question. I'll answer the first part in regards to a man having a mission. I think that's imperative. You should 100%, no question, as a man, have a mission. Because what this does is, I'll touch on what I was speaking about before, on that you're going forwards or backwards. And forward momentum is nothing but a collection of small wins that you've accumulated, and you realize that you now have momentum and you feel good about it. So without a mission, without a target, even if you are making forward progress, you won't be able to measure it, so you'll have no perceived wins. And therefore you'll perceive that you've got no momentum. So you'll feel like you're all either stagnant or going backwards all the time. And that's going to be terrible for you to have motivation and to avoid depression. And how does one get a mission? I think reflect on your values, find out what, and also as a man, let's talk about masculinity, what and who are important to you. And then what are your priorities? So let's say, just going to go the whole spectrum here. So maybe something is more important than people to you. If they are, I'd say maybe rethink your priorities. But if they are, okay, how can you service that thing, whatever it is? Maybe it's science, or if people are important to you, who are they and what can you do to serve them and to also serve yourself? And then I think to get the mission, the first thing you need to realize is what you would like to achieve in your lifetime. I think people set goals too short a lot of the time. So what are the things you would like to do? What are the effects that you would like to have on your environment and the people around you? Would you possibly like to change your environment? Because that's possibly, like you said, we're more mobile than ever. And then summarize this have a think about it, and then your mission will be pretty clear. And your first one is very unlikely to be the one that you die with that mission, but that's a bloody good start, and that'll get anyone started. Doesn't matter if you're running around on sub-Saharan Africa or you're in Norway, Australia, Alaska. You do that, you'll have a pretty good direction on where you want to go.
I think that's pretty good.
So that answers the question, because I think everyone's mission is going to be different. No one can be given a mission. It's the same with basic principles of leadership. If you want someone to do a good job of something, and I'm not sure, let's say you want to complete a task, if you micromanage someone and get them to complete step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, they don't feel involved in the process. If you say, I want you to achieve this end state, they make a plan, even if that plan's 80% as good as your plan, I would say get them to do their plan, because they're invested in their plan and they want to prove that their plan's going to work. And so the outcome will be better.
Yeah.
So yeah, that ties into the mission. So you get the person to figure it out themselves, and then it's so much more stronger. And then from teachings of our previous mentors, they get someone to attach some emotion to that, or more importantly, have, as they're considering their mission, they're feeling some sort of emotion that will more strongly tie them to trying to get the outcome of whatever that mission is.
Yeah. So they're more like self-directed.
Yeah. Self-directed, understanding their values and who they are, and then tying some emotion to that. And now you have someone, if you sprinkle in a bit of integrity and honesty in there, you have someone that's unstoppable.
Yep.
Because I think without the honesty and integrity, everyone's going to need help with their mission. And if they have no integrity, then people are going to fall by the wayside, and then they're going to give up on their mission because it'd be too hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
So in regards to masculinity, Jason, where do you think leadership plays a role in where we've come from and where we're going? Do you agree that the confusion between masculinity is going to continue to get worse? Because that's what I think.
I'm not sure if it's going to get worse or better, but I will say that, like, maybe a generation or two ago, the education and the role models were localized to your parents, maybe your like immediate family, and then the school system. Now that education, that programming, that influence is now globalized. So the children, like, and the teenagers, young people who are growing up now have global influence from global perspectives. So it could lead to like greater like sameness.
Same.
Could lead to more same, but that's very different to like a generation ago. So imagine you were, I don't know, 2 generations ago, you're like born in Croatia, like your influence is your father and your grandfather and your uncles from, your town in Split or whatever, whereas now you can go on the internet and you can listen to Jordan Peterson, or you could listen to President Trump, or, you could listen to whoever it is, like whatever the voice is, and that global access. Whereas, in that previous generation, maybe it was like the local teacher. So I think the power and influence of like the local community has gone down, and the power of the individual voice from a global perspective has gone up. So I don't know if that means that it's going to get worse or better. But in terms of leadership, I think programming and education is not neutral. So if you understand that everybody's being programmed and everybody's being educated, then the question is just about what kind of propaganda, what kind of education, like, do you want to have and to allow? So I, for me, in terms of leadership, I'd be like, well, here's where I'm going to plant my flag, and here are opposing views. I want you to be reasonable and, understand the perspectives. But I'm going to brainwash you from my propaganda and my education, my perspective. And you're welcome to disagree, but this is my view. This is my programming. So everybody's doing that. It's a constant, constant influencing of, of the masses. So if you don't realize that that's even happening to begin with, then you're just, flowing down the river. Whereas I'd prefer to be top of stream and influencing where the river's flowing.
I think I have an answer to the why that's happening. I think 100 years ago, if you were to say, picture the east coast of Australia, and what happened was every single small town and each individual area was influenced by a specific person or maybe a specific team. So if you were to put one area of influence as like a dot of paint, and then the next area was influenced by a different person or a different team, so the shade would be a different color. I think what's happened, and you can just imagine it'd just be this plethora of color up and down the east coast of Australia, like of all the different influences and towns. And 100 years ago, you could probably jump on a horse and ride 2 towns over, and they operate fairly differently. I think what's happened with technology is influence has been centralized. So the people who do and always have had the desire to influence people, instead of influencing their small town, they've gone into a pool of this word influencers. But what happened is the most effective influencer, and also this is a big one, the influencer whose ideology aligns with the tech platform they're using to influence the most, gets pushed, and their spread gets larger. And then so instead of having a whole different and diverse range of people throwing influence across the whole country, you've got a very centralized influence, and the ones that get selected are the ones that, like I said, the ideology lines up with the tech platform they're using. And then instead of having a very diverse set of influences and beliefs up and down, say, east coast of Australia, now it's just one big homogenized dot. It's like there was this beautiful oil painting previously, and someone's just come and just blended them all up, and now they're all the same color of brown.
Yeah, it's definitely like a lot of just groupthink. So yeah, it's a lot of groupthink. If you don't think that you're in groupthink, then you're being you're being quite deluded. So that's why the battle for free speech is like so important.
For any Australians listening, don't be under the delusion. Free speech is not legal in Australia and never has been.
We don't want to get banned.
Okay, I'll stop it there, but stand by what I said. Yeah, you can go and stand on any street corner and say pretty much whatever you want, but if you gain a bit of influence, you see what happens. Anyway, what do you think in regards to masculinity, men's challenges? What sort of role do you think someone's EQ plays in that? So someone's emotional intelligence. Do you think it makes their life harder, easier? What is the role of a man's EQ in their masculinity?
I think real EQ is knowing how to navigate the informal and formal hierarchies, social hierarchies. So anybody who doesn't possess that ability is going to be handicapped, and simply because it's not possible to really operate outside of hierarchies. And if you don't know how to navigate through both the formal and informal hierarchies because you lack social intelligence or emotional intelligence in dealing with all different types of people, then you're not going to be able to get as far in life. And so, the world is made up of people. So rather than bemoan that, better to learn the skills and play the game and understand that that's what's happening. And that's my view on emotional intelligence. I don't see it as, I understand my emotions and I feel what you're feeling. Like, I actually see that as maybe the lowest rung on the totem pole. Having the self-control and the awareness and the ability to navigate within the hierarchies and doing that effectively would be, for me, the highest form of of social and emotional intelligence. And unfortunately, like men who don't have that skill and haven't developed that skill are always very, very far behind the eight ball. They're extremely disadvantaged with moving ahead. And yeah, I don't think many people teach it, but people, I think, discount how important it is.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think the lowest form of EQ is someone being wrapped up in themselves. And then the higher form is being able to use a whole bunch of nonverbal communication to identify the way someone else is feeling, and then to identify how you should act in that certain moment. So you're like just a radar for, like, if you call it emotional energy, and understanding, reading the room, and then being able to identify what the best course of action is for your mission. I'd say that's possibly the highest level.
Yeah.
The highest level is being able to do that quicker.
Yep. Yep. I think another good summary, or a good summary of like high emotional intelligence, is if you can be high warmth, high power. So if you're high power, low warmth, people might fear you or respect you, but they don't really like you. Maybe you're likable, but you're useless. So you're a lovable idiot if you're high, high warmth, low power. You don't want to be a lovable idiot. Whereas if you can be high power, high warmth, then you're going to be effective.
I'd completely agree. And I think this comes back to tribe. If any particular person is stuck for whatever reason as the lovable idiot, they're going to find it more difficult to get out of that, because the people that can help them won't be willing to give them the light of day unless they've started working on themselves first.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this ties back into depression and a man's idea or feeling that they think they can't get out of the current situation, so they feel hopelessness. I think that is the one-track way into emotional despair and depression.
Yeah, being effective makes you happy as a man. It's as simple as that. You start to be effective in life, and your happiness increases.
Yes, and the only way to do that is to have a mission, so you can measure it, so you can see the wins and gain momentum.
Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting. Have you got any closing comments or any other thoughts in regards to masculinity?
No, I think it's a hot topic that is susceptible to getting us censored or banned in some way, shape, or form. Not popular to hold traditional conservative views on masculinity anymore. But maybe that's going to change. So we'll see.
Well, I hope so. I hope that, because I believe that having masculine men and feminine women lead to happy and productive children, and then therefore that eventually leads to a strong country and strong culture, and I don't see anything wrong with any of that. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of the FLF podcast. It's been great speaking to you again. We'll see you on the next one.
Yep.